Read, Right, and Wrong is brought to you by the team at City Limits Publishing. City Limits Publishing is a small, independent press created by authors for authors. You can best support the podcast by heading over to citylimitspublishing.com to browse our ever-expanding library featuring unique reading experiences in all genres. Sign up for the City Limits Publishing Book Club and get one new release of your choice delivered every month alongside a curated classic book. Learn all about this and more at citylimitspublishing.com. In the meantime, let's get right into today's episode. Hey there, everybody. What's going on? This is Read, Right, and Wrong, the author chat show here at City Limits Publishing, where we discuss everything we've read, what we're writing, and what's wrong with it all. I'm your host, Peter Fenton, and today we are talking all things dark, comedy, and crime with Ana Neimus, the author of An Idiot's Guide to Getting By, which released on March 16th. Ana, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here all the way from Mozambique. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And so my favorite question to ask my guests, tell me about yourself.
Has anybody not stumbled on this question yet?
Everyone does, and usually I just edit it out.
Okay, about me. Right. So I technically am supposed to be a lawyer. That clearly didn't work out that well. I don't have the personality for it. Which is not, a bad thing about lawyers. It's more about me. I just don't have the patience to deal with, certain types of clients.
Sure. I worked in customer service for a while, so.
So you totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much customer service with, higher stakes. And
really high stakes.
Yeah, wasn't into it.
Yeah.
So I also dabbled a lot in journalism. I went between law journalism before I went maybe neither.
Mm-hmm.
So did a whole lot of traveling. I think I might be settling down. I'm not entirely sure because I changed my mind quite quickly about that too.
Sure.
So right now, writing, freelancing in Mozambique, sometimes in the States. So not that settled.
Yeah.
But in short, that's me.
Cool. Yeah, so you were born in Mozambique, you were telling me before we started recording, and you grew up basically on the campus of Notre Dame, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, in South Bend, Indiana. So cool. Great. What kind of law were you supposed to practice?
Well, my first degree is in international law, and then I went back, did a degree in publishing / journalism, and then went back again and did a master's in general law, but it was more human rights. So I suppose I was supposed to be doing international law, human rights. But have you ever watched the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
No, I haven't, but I've heard really good things. That's on Netflix, right?
It is, yes. But in one of the seasons, they have a song called Don't Be a Lawyer. And in it, they explain exactly what the problem was. That there's no opportunities and it's really depressing to work in human rights law. And that's just hit the nail on the head right there.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine that it takes a certain type of personality to do that and be successful in it. So I guess good on you that you recognize that about yourself and you pivoted.
Opportunity.
Yeah. Right. It's important to figure out what it is we're supposed to do and or I guess more importantly, what we're not made to do.
Yeah. I suppose on the one hand, I'm happy that I recognized it relatively early on. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm kind of annoyed because 6-year-old me knew that I wanted to be a writer. And it seems that I was way smarter as a kid. And then I spent my teenage and early 20s ignoring all of that and then just went back to everything that I wanted to do as a kid.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a really common thing where we sort of have a sense of who we are as kids, and then for some reason they give 17, 18-year-old version of us, when we're most influenced by other people, the most deciding power of what am I going to college for? What do I want a degree in? When it's not right. I mean, I started college thinking that I was going to be a therapist, and that is not where things went. Ultimately, I mean, that's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a comedy writer. So here we are.
Well, you got there.
Yeah, eventually. Eventually we get there. So the important thing is that we get there.
Very true.
So,
Yes.
so why don't we transition into our first main segment of Read, Right, and Wrong. So let's talk about recent reading. So you've written a dark comedy crime fiction book. Is that normally the genre you read? What sorts of books do you like reading?
Well, I have a Terry Pratchett on my desk right now, so I suppose comedy is definitely in there.
Sure.
I just finished Mexican Gothic by, her name is right there. It was such a big book last year. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing it.
Yeah.
I have it right here.
Let me look it up.
Yes, I finished that one. And Christopher Landis's book as well.
Oh yeah, Murder at Daybreak. Great book.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw all of the descriptions of it. I'm like, okay, I have to check that one out, definitely. Yeah. So yes, crime, definitely. A little bit gothic and comedy. So I just hit all three right there.
Yeah. And so that's the genre you ended up writing, right? Those three things. Is Gothic part of?
Not in this one. My last one was, but this
Okay.
one I kept it a little more tame.
Cool. So what are some of your favorite books of all time? Do you have all-time favorites? Or is it more like momentary, this is my favorite right now?
Oh man. I suppose there are. It's just, the second you're asked that question, everything just wipes your brain. And I'm really trying hard not to mention a certain type of genre that I've realized in all the videos I've filmed, I've mentioned them.
Oh.
And if I say that word one more time, I'm pretty sure my mom's going to hear this and go, why? Why can't you just leave it alone?
Well, the beauty of it is the podcast audience isn't 100% overlap with our social media channels. So you could just be presenting the same information again.
True. It's more the fact that I've been mentioning vampires in every single one of these. I'm trying not to.
Fair enough.
Favorite books. I think I spoke a lot about American Gods, and in all of these, I've realized that we all have a fascination with Neil Gaiman for good reason. He's brilliant.
Oh, I think I mentioned Neil Gaiman in my videos too.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. Good Omens, great book.
And Terry Pratchett. See?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. I have read that one a few times because it is funny every single time.
Yeah. I thought the TV series was pretty good too, of Good Omens.
There are certain things that I feel like if you have to adapt them, it's better in TV because you have more time for these things. So yeah, they did a great job. Plus, David Tennant.
Yeah. So good. So good.
Really is. Terrible hair in the beginning, but it got better.
Yeah. Oh, of course. So okay. So what about some underrated books? Like, are there any sort of hidden gems that you found? I mean, I know that you're one of the early readers of Murder at Daybreak, so that's certainly an underrated book.
I feel like it's only temporarily underrated because the second people they hear about this, once the word gets out, there's no way that it's going to stay underrated for very long.
Yeah.
But oh man, I suppose I had a habit of looking underrated books at libraries because I never really paid much attention to authors. I just pick something off the shelf, love it, and then much later realize oh, this was a big book. Yeah. That's kind of how I started with Neil Gaiman anyway. Nancy Boys, not realizing oh, this is actually a whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I didn't participate in any books or anything. But I'm trying to look over at my bookshelf just to see, do I have any underrated ones right there? And the first one that's up there is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is not by any means underrated.
That is a great book, though.
Again, very funny.
Yeah. I love the matter-of-fact way that everything's described in that book. There's this one passage about mattresses and how their mattresses are actually hunted and killed, and it was just so bizarre. It's very funny.
I absolutely. For me, the line that stuck out was anything bigger than my ego, I want hunted and shot, which resonated with me and really shouldn't have, but it did.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh God. I've realized that I have not actually answered these questions, but yes.
Oh, that's fine. We're having a conversation. We're building a friendship. It's important. That's what podcasts are all about.
Wonderful. Oh, there's also the realization of, being recorded and trying to pick words very carefully.
Sure.
Okay, actually, I don't know how big this book is because I've never actually seen anybody else talk about it. But
Sure.
have you heard of Mark Forsyth?
No. Tell me about Mark Forsyth.
He is, I'm not sure if he's officially a lexicographer, but he loves words, and he wrote a whole book about the origins of words. So it's called the Etymologicon. And then after that one, he had another one. It's the Horologicon, which is all about phrases dealing with time. And then another one, which is Elements of Eloquence, which is fantastic, especially if you are, interested in writing.
Yeah.
Because it goes through people like Shakespeare and Hemingway, and goes through some of their like more famous phrasings and why they work. And it goes more into just like, oh, here's a metaphor, here's a simile. You have things like, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, like a zeugma, which is something that if you see it, you'll recognize it. And like in the most famous one, not most famous, but I suppose the one that comes to mind is in the Lion King. Our teeth and ambitions are bared.
Yeah, be prepared.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's an example of a zeugma in which you have. I'm going to explain this terribly, but it's two different ideas that are joined by like a similar verb that works for both of them.
Yeah. Interesting.
More said it's you held my hand and the door for me.
Right. That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So he goes through a whole lot of these, and I'm not really into nonfiction, but I thought these books are brilliant, and I haven't seen anybody talk about them.
Yeah. That's really cool. For the listener and podcast host who is not sure what the word lexicographer means, can you define that?
A lexicographer is somebody who, apologies if I butcher this definition. It's they work with the origins. They study words.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's their entire field is etymology, which is the study of words. So in this first one, the one that I mentioned, the Etymologicon, which again, I'm so proud of myself for being able to say. It took me ages to be able to pronounce it without stumbling. He has this great roundabout way of writing where he'll start with one word, take you through the history of it, how the phrase changed. Like the word ciao, we all know it as like, oh, hi, goodbye, in Italian. But the original phrasing for it ended up being something like declaring yourself to be somebody's slave, because it originates from the word schiavo, which meant slave.
Oh, wait, what? Oh.
Yeah. So when you're saying ciao, it's basically, like in the Arabic saying of, peace be with you, it's basically a greeting of I'm at your service, which is literally I am your slave. So solo te schiavo. And then it just got abbreviated to ciao.
Interesting. And so these are all stories that are in these books.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and they're really easy to read. You just breeze through them.
Great. Well, that sounds really cool. See, we got something interesting out of that. Why don't we move on to our next segment at this point? You're doing great. Writing away. So this is our next segment, writing away. So you have a new book that has just released. Tell us about it.
Oh, wow. Yes. An Idiot's Guide to Getting By is hopefully a funny piece about lost people. All of the characters in there, in some way or another, are lost. They don't know what they want, but they just know that they're not happy where they are.
Mm.
And typical, absurdist fiction fashion, they go to extremes to get themselves out of these situations.
Well, of
So,
course.
yeah, one, commits murder, which I do not recommend. That's not
No.
part of the helpful advice because this whole thing is set up as a guide. Don't
Yeah.
commit murder. Or in second point is even if you don't commit murder, don't lie about witnessing a murder to get thrown into witness protection, which is what our main character does.
Oh my.
Yeah. Again, like I said, absurdist.
Uh-huh. And this is all a comedic take on this setup.
Yeah, it's basically, it follows a story of a young man, Liam Brochi, who realizes that where he is in his mid to late 20s isn't where he wants to be. He doesn't know how he ended up there and he doesn't know how to get out. But he's afforded a
Relatable.
unique opportunity. Oh, it's supposed to be relatable. I feel like a lot of us have been or are in this position. Even if
Right.
you're not in your 20s, it happens for a while.
Sure.
But yeah, so he overhears description of a very unique form of, let's say, interrogation, and
Okay.
happens a little bit later to stumble upon a body that underwent this process of interrogation. So, armed with this knowledge, he figures it's most likely them, so I'll just say it was them, get myself thrown into witness protection. That way, the federal government will, pay to give me a new life, which is what happens.
Interesting. And it's the idiot's guide to getting through all that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, in this case, I use idiots in the sense that they're all people that know better but choose wrong anyway. And each section, it has very handy advice, like, establish a healthy work-life balance.
Uh-huh.
And then it's followed by characters that are not doing what the advice says. In this case, it's somebody who is sleeping with his boss's wife. Not healthy.
No. Generally
Especially
not.
if your boss is, a big-time mobster. Really not healthy.
Yes. Absolutely not. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting that you define idiot being somebody who does know better and chooses not to. That's an interesting definition you proposed there.
Yeah, I understand that originally, again, with the origins of words, idiot was supposed to be a medical term that we started throwing around, and then it just became like they're a dumb person.
Yeah.
But I feel like a true mark of like dumbness is not plain ignorance in that you have no idea what you're doing wrong. In this case, everybody knows exactly what they're doing wrong, but they figure, I can get away with it, which really is idiotic.
Right. Cool. So where did this book come from in your mind? I mean, you talk about it being relatable to a lot of us, whether we are in our 20s or not, but was there something specific that this came from in your mind?
Yeah, a few years ago, I was fresh out of university applying for loads of jobs, not hearing anything back or just hearing random rejections, and started watching true crime shows. So hearing about witness protection, I went, I need that because, my bank account is empty right now. I don't feel like I have prospects. Maybe I made the wrong decision at some point. So if I was, if I got a fresh start, maybe I could do something with it. Didn't do that, of course.
Sure.
But I jotted it down on a piece of paper, wrote about a couple of pages on it, and then promptly forgot it for a few years. A couple of years ago, I found myself in the exact same position again, in that I left a job, was sending out all these applications, and then remembered, I think I have something about this.
Yeah.
Use any of those pages, but it did start off the same way, with somebody feeling a little bit desperate, lying on the floor, hiding from their problems. And then this time it turned into a whole book.
Great. Well, I mean, the rest is history. I mean, you have a book that's out now at the time this episode will be released, which is very exciting.
It
Now,
really
this isn't your first novel, though. You had alluded to another one, right?
Well, this is the first novel. The
Okay.
previous book was a collection of short stories.
Gotcha. Where was that one published? Have you published it?
Yes, I self-published it on Amazon.
Oh, cool. Great. Would if a listener were interested in picking that up, what would that title be?
It's called Modern Penny Dreadfuls: Tales of the Monstrous and Banal.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
I seem to have a thing for long titles.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's great. I mean, I have a title that's Sea Amid the Winter Snow. Yeah, that's pretty long.
But it works, though.
Yeah, you know. So what has the response been? Did you have like beta readers and editors? Like, what have people been saying about your book so far?
I did have beta readers. It's been interesting in that I sent it off in small segments, and usually the first response was send the rest, which I took as a good sign. It was, the main criticism was like, hey, slow down when you're typing, there's a lot of typos, but the rest of it was oh yeah, this is really funny.
Good.
Which, again, as a comedy book is kind of what you want to hear. But I often get into my own head and go, nah, they're just being nice. Nah, they don't mean that. They're just being nice. They don't really know how to criticize me. So I'd send over like a list of 20 questions afterwards, and people were like, we just answered you. Like, we like it. Please continue. Send us the rest. Like, well, no, could you, before I give you the rest, could you just answer these things? They're like, no, if you're going to hold us hostage with this, we're doing it too. Give us the rest of the book and then we'll give you the feedback.
Right.
So generally the feedback was good.
Good. Yeah. Comedy novels are not something that we see a ton of. You know, I haven't personally read a ton of them. I mean, I know we were talking about Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. What would your advice be to someone who wants to write a comedic novel?
I think first thing is you have to be able to make yourself laugh.
Yeah.
Like, if you aren't actually enjoying the process, then I don't suspect many other people will do.
Sure.
I don't know how that works in terms of advice, but it really is. Like, I think the one thing that kept me going, even in the moments I'm like, I really shouldn't be doing this. This is ridiculous. Like, real people don't actually write books. That's something that, famous people do. It was reading through it and realizing like, oh, this is funny, and actually laughing. I'm like, okay, maybe I can actually do this. And then sending it off to other people, to get that feedback and seeing it's one thing to hear that somebody found it funny, but it's another to actually see somebody laugh at what you wrote.
Sure.
So I suppose if you're happy with that bit, then the rest of it comes easy. And it's just a matter of, patience, dedication, treat it like a second job, which, it sounds a little frustrating, but it's the only way that it gets written.
Yeah. That really resonates with me when I write comedy. It's, if I don't find it funny, no one else will. You have to play to your own strengths. You have to write what do I want to laugh about right now? And it's just how you make it happen.
Yeah, I suppose that would be my biggest takeaway from it. Just, you have to be able to make yourself laugh first.
Good advice. So what is next for you? Are you working on a new book or working on more short stories, more crime?
Well, a while ago, because I had outlined 2 different stories that I wanted to write next. One was another criminal comedy, and one was a up fairy tale. And the one that got the most votes was the fairy tale. So I'm looking at my whiteboard now that has that outline.
Yeah.
So exciting. So, again, dark comedy, but this time fairy tale.
Fun. Yeah, I enjoy the meshing of those two. I think that there's some really good ground you could tread on that for sure.
So far, well, I'm enjoying it so far, so
Hmm.
hopefully I can keep that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Anything else you want to share about projects you're working on or any future things before we transition to our next segment?
Oh man, I have a whole full. I have a box of ideas of stuff that I had written down years ago, but then, like I said, I was in like the mindset that real people aren't writers. That's something that other people do, not me.
Right.
But when I moved back, I found the box. I was going through them and went, actually, this is a good idea. This one's a good idea too. So I have about a folder of 6 different things that I want to write next. So it's just a matter of getting through them.
Yeah. I think a lot of writers can relate to that. A lot of real people who are writers can relate to that.
Yeah, as to the real people out there, you can write a book, right? It's not just for other people. It's you
Yeah.
too.
Amen. All right. So that brings us to our final segment, all the wrongs. So let's get candid. So we can go one of two directions right now. We can talk about your own writing, where you've gotten it wrong, or we can talk about other people's writing, where they have gotten it wrong. So what is something that either you've written or someone else has written that you feel like it went wrong?
Okay, you know how earlier I said that I was going to avoid talking about vampires? I'm
Yeah.
going to go.
Go ham. Talk about the
Yeah,
vampires.
I'm going to go with the big one. And I'm not even going to apologize. Fair enough, there's a lot of Twilight fans out there, and for good reason.
Mhm.
However, there are a few things I take issue with, but I'm only going to focus on one. By now, I've established that I am a little bit of, a vampire fanatic, but that's
Mhm.
because the lore is something that is fascinating to me. It's something that is without, like, it's gone through hundreds of years. This is incredible, right? The problem with the Twilight books that I'm going to fixate on is the sparkling vampire thing. And I know that it's something that, like, in the early 2010s, whenever the movies came out, we all made fun of.
Oh
But the reason
yes, we did.
it was ridiculous. And the reason that it annoys me so much is that it seemed that Stephanie Meyer was so afraid to hurt any one of her characters because in this case, like the vampires are supposed to be the good guys. And she didn't want anything bad to happen to them. So instead of having the usual, oh, the vampire is allergic to the sun reaction, it's the, oh no, he can't go outside because he'll sparkle and then everybody will know. Like, no, it's, oh man, I could go on. I have gone on about this book, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my friends are now happy that I've gotten to a stage where I'm over it and started ranting about other things.
Hmm.
But the fear that Stephanie Myers had to harm any one of her characters. I mean, there was the whole love triangle thing, right?
Yeah.
Main character picks one of the guys, the other guy is left heartbroken. But no, we can't leave him heartbroken. Let's find him somebody to love. Ooh, let's introduce a new character. Should we
Her
bring in a
baby.
fully grown woman? No, they brought in a baby. A baby? Okay, that should prove my point. It was just ridiculous. It was too much. I get wanting a happy ending. I really do. I'm a big fan of happy endings.
Hmm.
But come on.
Yeah.
That's where I draw the line. Don't fall in love with babies.
Yeah. Even with the BS age up that they do of the daughter, I
No,
don't think it's
I'm
effective.
sorry. Yeah, I understand that there's all types of relationships, and I'm generally not one to judge. However,
Sure.
if at any point you've seen your spouse in diapers, you should not be marrying them. That's too much.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like, oh, I was 3 years old and I knew them, because you don't remember when you were 3. I mean, if
Right.
you were old
An
enough and
adult.
responsible enough to be able to change their diapers, you shouldn't be marrying them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
I have a lot of feelings about it.
Yeah, no, you went right for the jugular. We love it. I do think it's interesting that Stephanie Meyer sort of skirted around the problem of sun by setting it in Seattle.
It'd be the same thing as setting it in London. Fair enough. Yes, it's often gray, but every so
Yeah.
often the sun does come out. Oh,
Yeah.
conveniently, that's the time that they're on holiday, or they just
Right.
skip school. I'm sorry, but if an entire family is skipping school on sunny days, call the truancy office because we need to talk to those parents. Not okay.
Yeah. And also, the kids have been in that grade forever, right?
Yeah, I think it's they moved around a bit, so it's they keep going to high school, which okay, high school wasn't terrible for me, but it's not something I'd want to repeat for the rest of my life.
Oh, God,
Like
no.
eternal youth, okay, also it's terrifying, but definitely not at the cost of going to high school. If that is like the exchange, no. No, thank you. I refuse.
Yeah. No way.
I will take the wrinkles, I'll take the gray hair. Don't make me
Yeah.
go back to high school.
I think I would do better in high school on a second go around if I had the consciousness of me at, like, say 25. But I would probably only want to do it once a second time. But even then, is it really worth it? My life is fine. I turned out okay.
Yeah. Also, if I have to go back to school, then I'll happily go back to university. That's fun, and you can party then.
Yeah.
What can you really do in high school? Like, oh yeah, you get your driver's license. I didn't have my driver's license in high school.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything in high school, and even then, I still don't want to go back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe college is more the time that I would want to repeat with the consciousness of my mid-20s. But yeah, definitely not high school, and definitely not high school over and over again.
No. Also, could you imagine going back, like having access to university for the rest of your life, like being in those libraries, all of the stuff that you could learn.
Yeah.
With an eternal life, that is more suitable.
Oh, certainly.
But eventually, you just become a professor.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Not
Yeah.
high school. Like that's a missed opportunity. There's another issue I have with the book there.
Yeah. So would Twilight have been more of a success if it were set in university?
Probably not, because the target audience was for high schoolers, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
But
I mean,
odds
everyone looks old enough to be in college in the movie.
Oh, the magic of Hollywood.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Don't get me started on that.
No, it didn't cause any self-esteem issues whatsoever.
No.
Like watching shows like One Tree Hill. Nope, no problems there.
Sure. So let's talk about you as a writer. Where have you gotten it wrong? Now, you had alluded to the way that you go through feedback process earlier. Was there any time where you got a bad review that you didn't see coming?
Not yet. So far, I feel like I'm still my own harshest critic. I feel like, in terms of where I got it wrong with my first book, since I self-published it kind of on a whim, I didn't take that much time with it. So I feel like if I had to do it again, I would have got more people involved, like, hired a more professional editing service, because I had a friend do it and she did a great job, but I feel like maybe I could have had another step on there. Hired somebody to make the cover, actually take my time with it, instead of like, hey, look, I compiled a bunch of stories, it's technically a book, and then put it online.
Yeah.
And I'm trying really hard to stop thinking about that with this book as well, because it's like sometimes I keep feeling like, oh, should I have changed that? Should I have added this? Okay, contrary to what it may seem like right now, because I am rambling, but I'm not a very wordy person, and I feel like sometimes maybe I could have added more description, like, would a scene have benefited more when I described, who's passing by outside? But I was so focused on the relationship between these two people that anything outside really didn't matter. I just wanted to focus on that table. So sometimes I look back and wonder, like, should I have added, like, what's around them? So I feel like that's where I might have got it wrong.
Yeah, but that is interesting, because oftentimes with novelists, the problem is they're too long, they're too wordy, too descriptive. So maybe that is an okay problem that you find yourself in, right?
I suppose, but it's if you're surrounded by everybody doing the thing and you're not doing the thing, you have to assume that you're the one in the wrong, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably in the same camp as you because normally I write stage plays and screenplays. So I'm used to being light on the descriptions. And so as I'm working through writing my first novel, I'm like, wait, the people actually need to be put in the room. I'm not relying on a set dresser to just design the room for me because I don't really care. So that's
Well, yeah, that
that's
makes
something
sense.
I'm running into right now.
But it's also the thing of sometimes you pick up a novel and you have pages of description and you're like, I don't really care. Get to the
Yeah.
actual bits.
Yeah.
And it's not that I was actively thinking this while writing. It just happens that it's like, okay, well, you know, the thing that I really care about is happening at this table. I'm going to
Hmm.
focus on, what's on the table, who's at the table, who directly passes by the table, but not anything else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's it's all about finding balance, right? When you're writing, when you're doing anything, really.
Everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yes, absolutely. So as somebody who has spent considerable amount of time in multiple different countries, have you noticed influences of these countries on you as a writer? So is there something distinctly American or from Mozambique or British? I know you spent some time in the UK as well. Have those countries sort of influenced the way that you view the world and thus end up writing?
I I feel like inevitably yes, and I'm trying to pinpoint exactly how. Like An Idiot's Guide is set in the US. It starts
Hmm.
off in Chicago and then goes to other places. Because as a kid, I spent a fair amount of time in Chicago. But when writing scenes there, I also realized that some of the descriptions that I use are like some of the phrasing is uniquely British. So I have to cut that out and try to
Hmm.
go back to what I would have said as a kid.
Yeah.
But it's not on this work, but there's something else that I outlined, which is have you heard this concept of a third culture kid?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of raised like that, and a lot of my friends are, also third culture kids. So
Hmm.
I often fall into that fallacy. It's the fallacy of logic. It's the post hoc that everybody kind of thinks the way that I do,
Hmm.
and then you know realizing that, oh no, actually I have to switch this to based off of what the setting is, because people I feel are largely the same, but there are some cultural differences between, say, being in Mozambique and what's normal and acceptable here is not often seen that favorably, say, in the States, where you have
Sure.
like currently a little bit more of a progressive society. So there's certain phrases that you can get away with saying here, but you definitely can't in the States. So I have to be aware of those sorts of things, like, oh no, 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 can't use that, can't say that here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, I suppose, more in terms of phrasing, have to be aware of like which character would actually say what.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's being aware of that.
Yeah. I'm sure that's fascinating. I'm only American, so I only have the American perspective. And when I had left the country for the first time, I was like, oh, wait, other cultures, like being American is not being human. There's something that is distinctly human about the way that I think, but it's shaped by being an American. And I think you being a third culture kid to an extent, you can sort of recognize a little better, oh, this is distinctly British, this is distinctly American, this is something I can say in Mozambique, but not in the States.
Yeah, I once nearly got into trouble in the UK when discussing race because there's certain phrases that in Southern Africa, it's very common to say, but elsewhere where you've had, proper, racial issues, like racial divides, certain conversations that still need to be had and people aren't comfortable having. There's certain things that you really can't say, even though we're so used to it. We're like, oh, that's not a bad word, considering it's like I'm talking about me. And they're like, no, even if, the person you're speaking to looks like you or doesn't, they're like, no, you can't say that here. You get in trouble with that. I'm like, how can I get in trouble if I'm describing myself?
Sure. Interesting. Yeah. What is something about, so being from America, we are taught next to nothing about any of the African countries. What is something that you would want listeners to know about Mozambique who might not know hardly anything?
There's so much I want to say, but I'm just going to reflect back on my high school experience since I finished high school in the States. And on my first day, somebody once asked me if I ever pet a lion. Please don't do this anymore.
No.
All of my friends from here who have gone to the States have had this sort of interaction with people that I get. There's very little taught about Africa, which is something that definitely needs to change.
Absolutely.
It is incredible living down here, and it's such a shame that people don't know how it's fun and it's vibrant and it's so just it really is a great place to live. Like, I love the States, I really do. I love the UK, I loved Ireland. But I guess here being home, it is a different sort of love. And I would like other people to, experience that, travel here, see. We have amazing beaches, incredible food. We, great parties. Well, not right now, because, can't do that.
COVID, but.
Yeah, but back in the day when we could, we really partied it up. It was fantastic. But yeah, we're more than just, Savannah and the Lion King. We're people.
Yeah.
So don't ask Africans if they've interacted with lions. Sure. Because we've started lying about this, which is what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, okay, a friend of mine did a fantastic one where somebody asked her if she'd ever pet a rhino. She's like, oh no, that's why we keep lions as pets, to keep them away, because, rhinos are dangerous. Have you seen that horn? Like, somebody else was asked if, these clothes that we were wearing are heavy because, we're used to wearing leaves. We don't. We wear clothes. No. We really love clothes. Like, Ghana is one of the fashion capitals of the world.
Yeah.
Please. I just need the media to show Africa as Africa, because we're like 55 countries now. Each one is different. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Just give us a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to learn and so much to offer the world that we just haven't really been listening to. So thank you for sharing some of that with us today.
It's while I love being associated with Mozambique, I also realize that my perspective, as you were saying, going between cultures and all that, writing about ghosts and vampires isn't a very Mozambican thing to do, which is definitely foreign influence. So being raised in the States is what made me a little bit this way. But given the opportunity, I would like to add in some African superstitions, which maybe that's another project to do.
Maybe. Add it to the list.
7.
I'd love to see it.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Ana, it has been wonderful talking to you today. Really a pleasure. I'm so excited to see your book released, and I can't wait for everyone to read it. You can get your copy of An Idiot's Guide to Getting By today, everywhere books are sold. Ana, thank you so much. Any final thoughts for our listeners? Where can people find you on social media?
On Instagram, I'm Ana Neimus Writes. I'm technically on Twitter. I start tweeting more if, I get any followers. But,
right.
No
I think I followed you back.
Oh, sweet. Sorry, didn't check. Because again, like I go on there to check, like, oh, did anything happen? And scroll off.
Yeah.
I mean, close the tab. But yeah, I am technically on Twitter, but more active on the Instas. but also really looking forward to Abandon All Hope with the title like I could not resist. It's in the cart.
I mean, our release dates are so close to each other, and they're both dark comedies. I mean, you've seen the blood-spattered book cover, of course. Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of death and hell, so it's a good time.
Well, yeah, maybe it's because March last year wasn't that great, so maybe it's the mood from March this year.
Right. I wrote Abandon All Hope the first 6 weeks of the first lockdown, and it was just my mind was going to a really dark place, and the way that I could process it was by joking about it and making myself laugh, and that's exactly what I did. So Abandon All Hope is also coming out on March 30th, also from City Limits Publishing. So well, thank you all for listening today. I'm Peter Fenton, and this is Read, Right, and Wrong. What are you still doing listening to this episode? Hit pause, head over to citylimitspublishing.com and find your next book. I'm your host, Peter Fenton. You can find me online at bypeterfenton.com or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at peterfent. Have a great day, everyone.